So Kamala Harris is now arguing that Twitter should ban the President of the United States. She's going to go ahead and make this case on CNN.
And I do believe that the United States Congress, the leaders of the United States Congress, will do everything that is necessary to support and protect the whistleblower. The president's tweets and his behaviors about this are just further evidence of the fact that he uses his power in a way that is designed to beat people down instead of lift people up. Frankly, when you look at what he's been tweeting today, directed at the whistleblower, directed at so many people, I frankly think that based on this and all we've seen him do before, including attacking members of Congress, that he frankly his Twitter account should be suspended. I think there is plenty of now evidence to suggest that he is irresponsible with his words in a way that could result in harm to other people. And so the privilege of using those words in that way should probably be taken from him.
But doesn't that, play into certainly the hands of, his, I don't know how many Twitter followers he has. I think it's in the range of 60 million who say, well, look, okay, now the rich folks in Silicon Valley are just trying to silence me and taking me off Twitter.
I'm sure that will be said, but we have to also agree that when the President of the United States speaks, her words are very powerful and should be used in a way that is not about belittling, much less harming anyone. And this president has, I think, never fully appreciated that responsibility. And so what we see continuously, including in the last 24 hours, is a use of his words, Donald Trump using his words, in a way that could subject someone to harm. And if he's not going to exercise self-restraint, then perhaps there should be other mechanisms in place to make sure that his words do not, in fact, harm anyone. And that's my point.
Okay, there's a lot to say about this. First and foremost, they never said this. She never said this, and they, meaning Democrats, never came out and said this when Donald Trump was quite literally threatening a war with Iran and North Korea. And he has. He's gone on Twitter and, explicitly threatened war with both Iran and North Korea. And everybody just kind of sat by and was like, yep, that's, he's... Now, there were actually people on Twitter who I think are much more reasonable at that time who were like, well, this is a violation of your terms of service. Let's not be silly here. That's obviously what he's doing. But there's this artificial carve-out when it comes to heads of state and governments and the Twitter terms of service. So you're not allowed to threaten violence unless you're a head of state or you're a government. Governments are allowed to threaten all this. So the IDF Twitter account can go and threaten to murder, babies in Gaza, and there's technically no violation of the terms of service because there's an arbitrary carve-out provision. So, but people at that time on Twitter, actual Twitter lefties, were like, okay, he's literally threatening war with Iran. One time was North Korea. And they're like, if there was ever a time, if you really wanted to, get tough on threats, this is a person who could actually deliver on it. What are we doing? But they were out to lunch when that happened. Why? Because they don't really care about that. You want to go after Iran? You want to go after North Korea? Fine, we don't like them either. That's the philosophy. But now, you've gone after fellow elites like Adam Schiff, for example. You've gone after the whistleblower, yes! I love whistleblowers now, unless it's Edward Snowden and Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning. Fuck them. But I love this new whistleblower, yes! So that's why now she's like, suspend him. You've gone after me and my friends in the club. That's not okay. So I'm a little bit annoyed by the self-serving nature of it. But also, furthermore, now let's get into the actual question here, which is, should that happen? Well, is there a case for doing it? Sure. I think he's probably violated the terms of service a million times. But in my opinion, this is just lame as fuck, man. If this is, and listen, she's running for president. This is obviously a strategy on her part. And her strategy is going to tell the teacher to do something. She tweeted at Jack, Jack, what about this? It's mods, like, this is so lame. This is so weak and so lame. And then notice she didn't have a good answer to Anderson Cooper's question, because Anderson Cooper followed up with like a pretty reasonable response. He was like, aren't you like perfectly feeding in to that victim narrative where they say, well, here we go again, Silicon Valley elites, censoring our beloved side. And she's like, yeah, but something has to be done. That's going to be your rebuttal? That's going to be your rebuttal? So basically you're just giving them exactly the thing that's going to feed their narrative. And then you're going to turn around and go, I don't have a really good reaction to this. It's just lame. I think there is a literal technical case to, okay, he has violated terms of service in all these variety of different ways. I think there's a technical case to do it. But listen, I'm of the belief that you should lean on the side of free speech as much as possible. And also what these people never understand and they never think of is like how quickly this can be flipped back on them. It doesn't even occur to them when they're having this conversation, like, oh, maybe this will end up impacting me in a negative way. Doesn't even occur to them. Doesn't even occur to them because they're so blinded by their partisan hackery that they don't realize, like, okay, well, let's do a little thought exercise here. What about, I don't know, let's say somebody who was a criminal who was released and is now back on Twitter. I would argue that somebody who, let's say, committed murder or manslaughter or, robbery of in excess of $100,000 or whatever, somebody who went to prison and then got out and now they're on Twitter and they were a murderer, that person committed a way more egregious wrong than somebody who, said the wrong thing. Like, no, saying the wrong thing is never as bad as actually doing something that's wrong. Like, O.J. Simpson did it, and he's fucking on Twitter every day. So, that doesn't make sense to me. It's like, this person had done something way worse than this person, but we're going to ban this person, and we're not going to touch this person. What? Now, you could say, well, one of them is with words, and one of them isn't. That's true, but that kind of exposes the arbitrary nature of this all. Because, again, we all agree actions are worse than bad words, but you're going to punish the bad words and not do anything with the bad actions. And then furthermore, what happens when you have, like, people are so context dumb that they don't understand, like, a back and forth between two people who are friendly with each other, and, somebody calls them a politically incorrect term, but it's their friend and they're doing it, like, I don't know, pick an example. 2 black teenagers and they use the N-word casually with each other. Okay? Are we going to get to the point where it's like, well, that you're using a racial slur. We're going to have to pull you down now. Is the context irrelevant? Now you say, well, you just be smart about the context. But they never have been in the past. I know people who've gotten banned. There was somebody who just got banned from TikTok, the new one, because they did a joke involving Osama bin Laden. The joke was like something along the lines of, do you like a man who's 6'5" and tan and has a nice full beard? And then it cuts to a picture of Osama bin Laden. That's funny. That's hilarious. They're not saying, hey, don't you actually want to fuck Osama bin Laden? They're saying, oh, look, a joke. A hee ha ha. You're not allowed to joke about that. Yeah, we're going to ban you. Banned, suspended. Like this, you open up the door and you have more problems than solutions. I mean, if you don't like what somebody's saying, if you don't like something, pull it down. Now, I'm not saying like genuine harassment, like actual threats of violence and stuff like that, like you can't act on that. Everybody agrees that there are certain things that cross the line. But you better be pretty damn intelligent with where you draw that line. And people like Kamala, like, oh, yeah, I don't like what the president says, get rid of it. You realize how quickly conservatives would be all over Kamala's Twitter feed then, searching for any little thing that she said that maybe crossed that line just a little bit at some point. And they'll find it. It always exists. Everybody thinks, oh, I never did anything wrong. Let somebody jack something out of context on you, and you'll see how quickly you flip on that. Okay, so, this is the door that we're opening here. This is the door that we're opening. And remember, you're also giving tools to the powerful to determine what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. I don't want Jack to be the ultimate dictator of what's allowed and what's not allowed on Twitter. I don't. I don't trust that guy's ability to do it in a reasonable way. Why should I? Guys, imagine if Twitter was around in the lead up to the Iraq War. Everybody like myself who was saying, hey man, the government's full of shit, they shouldn't topple Saddam. What would happen? A Saddam apologist, conspiracy theorist, pull him down. That's what would happen. It's happening today with Jimmy Dore. Some, whatever paper, I don't even know who it is. Some website did a hit piece on Jimmy Dore where they're trying to say he was funded by the Assad regime. No, he wasn't. He had gotten some money because this is how he raises money, through Patreon, because he has a show like I have a show. And it was some anti-war group that donated to him. They're claiming that anti-war group is flat out just a representative of the Assad government that's paying him on behalf of Assad for him to go out there and push these Syria conspiracy theories. Are you kidding? As if anybody could pay Jimmy Dore to change his opinion on something. No, he's giving his actual opinion. That's his actual opinion on something. You might not like it, but it's his actual opinion, and it's certainly not brought about by corruption. So, but this is what we're talking about. Like, oh, pull him down because he was saying, I'm not sure if I buy the Syrian chemical attack story. Conspiracy theorists, you gotta go. The list goes on and on. Once you open this door, there is no closing this door. It's just a rush to censor anybody and everybody for political motives, bad motives, good motives, and it's a race to the bottom where the only words that are eventually allowed on these platforms are like, I like puppies and rainbows are pretty. Is that what we want? That's certainly not what I want. So, Kamala Harris is being rather silly here. And this, honestly, this reminds me of the Beto strategy. What was Beto's strategy? Well, he knows he's, floundering in the polls, so he's trying to get a bump. So what's he do? I got to outflank everybody on something. But what does he pick? He picks the issue of guns. And he picks an issue that there's not much evidence to suggest that people are with him. Like, if he went out there and said, let's do universal background checks, let's ban high-capacity magazines, let's ban assault weapons, then that could be a big bump, but he didn't. He said mandatory gun confiscation, mandatory gun buyback, which is confiscation. That's what it is. So he outflanked everybody, but he chose an issue where that's not really going to help him. Kamala's doing the same thing. Well, I got to outflank everybody. I got Elizabeth Warren is to my left, Bernie Sanders is to her left. I got to do something here. So what is it? Jack? Mods? The president needs to be banned on Twitter. Mods? They're not going to ban the president of the United States from Twitter. And if they do, she has no idea that the fallout from that and the backlash from that is going to be way worse off than if you leave him on Twitter. By the way, by definition, what he says is newsworthy. You can make a case he technically violated the terms of service, but really I think the more reasonable reaction to that is, well, the terms of service blow. Not that, pull him down. I mean, if you want to put little warnings when he actually does violate them, if you want to put you have to click through to see this tweet or something when it's like he's actually threatening war with Iran or North Korea, you have the screen you have to click through and say, just warning, this violates our terms of service. You click through it and then it's there. That's one thing. That'd be fine, but you have to allow people to see. You can't just ban them from the platform, or if you are in favor of that, that's super authoritarian. And she doesn't even realize that that's what it is because she's just playing a political game and she's trying to get ahead and she's doing a terrible job at it.